Mhm. Two really interesting and strong contrasts for me.
Mm,
Two really strong, interesting, and strong contrasts for me in the reading this week, centered around Moltmann's conversation around Christianity, the religion of joy, and the way that that is sort of experienced in light of the fact that Jesus, the gospel is really about Jesus' pain and suffering and what he had to go through in order for us to experience freedom. And then um, across the way, reading Costin in chapter 5, talking about the experience of slaves being excluded from communion in the Lord's Supper, which is supposed to be this sort of thing that brings everybody together to celebrate the one thing that makes us all free, is really, really interesting. Like, I mean, it just really caused me to take a deep dive into like how we got to the place where even our Sunday experiences across the world are so segregated. Reading about um, African American slaves needing to have a token and coming from balconies to participate in communion and not um, even though able to experience the fullness of Christ, not able to do it with like-minded believers in an equitable way. Um, and if that's a that's a very sort of complex conversation to have with people because I think the way that a lot of times things are framed is that like in religion, in our spiritual and religious context, like we're all free and we're just sort of, moving around in this freedom, and it's a historical freedom that the church has created because all of these denominations created opportunities and space for African Americans and slaves to worship, and voila. And it also brings to light the experience of um, interracial congregations and how African Americans were embraced and how the word could go forth. Like I would imagine that there was preaching about the work of the cross and how it liberates and makes equitable the systems that religion allows for, and yet African Americans did not have the privilege within certain historical timeframes to celebrate the Lord's birth in the same way for which other African American or other individuals, other parishioners did. And so it's a very interesting conversation, and it actually brings a lot of clarity to like the experiences that I have in my local context where we have communion every first Sunday. And recently I was kind of distraught about the idea of having communion on Easter because my mindset was like, it's just laden with tradition. And if we have guests, they're not going to understand. They're not going to want to come back to our church on a Sunday because they're going to think that we're laden with rituals and it's just going to be too long and all these things. And just to think in this historical context that the ability to celebrate and to experience the Lord's Supper with other believers in an equitable way has not always been the case. And so that was sort of a revelation for me, an eye-opening, thought-provoking, experience in the reading for me, just comparing just some of the readings in Maltman and Costin. So I appreciate this class for exposing some of those thoughts and realities to me because I had not known. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the reading as well. I guess I'm supposed to pose a question. This is a bit late, so I'm not sure who will watch this and respond. But I guess I wonder if you if your context, your religious context, allows for this idea that communion and the Last Supper has always been equitable and open to all people. And in since the reading has revealed that that's not the case, how that like frames what you have been groomed to know and how you've been groomed to experience communion. I'd love to hear more from you all.